Welcome back to the Baseball Blue Book Podcast, where we focus on the journey, not the destination. Brought to you by the Baseball Blue Book app. Are you in the book? And now, your host, Eric Wobanaw. Welcome back to the Baseball Blue Book Podcast. My name is Eric Wobanaw, the president of the Baseball Blue Book. And today, really looking forward to this episode. We've got Coach Edwin Thompson from the Georgetown University Hoyas. How are you, Coach?
Doing great today. It's beautiful here in Washington, D.C., so great to talk some baseball.
That's great.
Thanks for having me on.
Great. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun doing these interviews, meeting coaches from all over the country, and it's always fun to get a D1 coach on, a little bit different perspective of what they're looking for. Before we begin, I want to make sure to encourage everyone to subscribe to the channel. Helps us out, gets the message out, and it's been a lot of fun. Get a lot of reviews and comments back to say they want to hear more. And so I really appreciate that, but please subscribe. All right, so Coach, the podcast is really about your journey, but more importantly, it's a highlight and a promotion of Georgetown University, and it'll give you an opportunity to kind of brag on the program. So the few questions that we'll get to, and I always like to start it out this way so people can look forward to what they're going to hear, is we're going to ask kind of what advice that you would provide the kids that are interested in looking at playing at Georgetown University, some of the things that they probably can do to better prepare them. Just different things. We all know what it takes to be at a D1 level, and it's certainly different. But we love to hear that. And then also kind of what makes Georgetown University unique. I'm a Big East kind of guy. I lived in Pittsburgh. I know the Panthers are no longer in the Big East, but I was always Georgetown was kind of a rival for us. So I really can appreciate the power of the Georgetown University. And so, Coach, why don't you start with your journey? It's a long journey. It started. I think it started in Maine, but I'd love to hear from you and kind of what the journey looked like and kind of the steps along the way to get to where you are today.
Yeah, so the journey is just that. And I think that's the part for any coaches listening out there, that your journey is your journey. Any player out there, your journey is your journey. And I started off, my first job was middle school basketball JV coach. That was my first coaching job. And so I think I have a unique starting point, but doesn't mean that can be your own end point. I think it's dependent on what you want to make it. And I think I've always been a big believer in be where my feet are at, be the best coach, the best version of myself, the best leader that I can. So I did middle school basketball back home in Jay, Maine, and that's where I'm from. I grew up. And so we did that for a few years. I did high school basketball, girls basketball, middle school track. I coached travel baseball, I coached high school baseball, high school football. And during that time, I was coaching at so I was doing a little bit of everything. During that time, I started to coach at University of Maine at Farmington, a small Division III school. I had a great chance to kind of grow as a coach. Dick Meter was my head coach, gave me my first job. And really allowed me to grow, taught me a lot about how to run a college program, how to do things at the college level, because I just didn't know. And then I was fortunate to get a head coaching job at Bates College. And at the same time, I was also the college football running backs coach at Bates. So Division III school in Maine, I coached college football. I taught a class, and I was able to coach the team. I was there for 2 years, went on to Duke University from there, kind of with my big break, if you will, to go from Division III to the ACC. Obviously, that was a big jump for me, but my values never changed. I was just the same coach that I was coaching middle school kids. And so just being consistent with them, hardworking, competitive, those traits have always been. And then I went there for 2 years, went to Georgia State University for 3 years. And then I got my first head coaching at the Division I level, Eastern Kentucky, in 2015. I was there for 5. COVID hit, and then Georgetown called, and I've been here since. So it's been kind of a unique journey, especially during the COVID times where I got hired here in the fall of 2020. Didn't meet my team until March of 2021. We had 7 days of practice, and we had a season. And so that was kind of a crazy time, but it was one that, obviously that's kind of where we're at today. So we're going into my second full season, and then, my third year here, if you want to call that a year. But that's kind of been the unique journey. So 19 years of coaching college, but I've done everything from girls basketball to middle school track to college football, and been very fortunate. Part of my journey has helped me prepare me to be where I need to have success, be competitive in my job now.
That's great. You had mentioned you hadn't changed no matter what level you were at, kind of the same person. I'm still a coach. I really like that because one of the things that and a lot of coaches watch these interviews as well. Kind of, how do I get to that next level? What do I need to do? Talk about what that means to you. I'm just a coach, no different than what I was when I was coaching girls basketball, and now I'm coaching a Division I, a championship team. Right? I think from the outside perspective, it's a whole different ball game. But talk about why it's not.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just, trust yourself. When I went from Division III to Duke, there was probably about a 3-day period where I was like looking over my shoulder. Am I doing good enough? And not that I got hired to do a job, and I'm confident in my abilities. I never try to be somebody that I wasn't. And I think that's always be authentic to who you are, be yourself. And then the people that hire you or you're in charge of will recognize that, and just to be the best version, and then give your kids the best energy you can, the best effort that you want, give them the same return. And that's been kind of been my strength, has just been myself. And I think I'm honest and direct to kids, which sometimes can get lost in as being demanding, but at the same time, I have certain standards we want to hold upon. And that part of it is really important for me. So I've always just tried to stay consistent, stay in the moment, but at the same time, trust what I've worked so hard each time to be prepared for my kids every day.
Even though you're the same from a coaching perspective, and kind of, you said you had high standards. Is there a difference when you're coaching at the lower levels, maybe and I'm not just talking lower levels of college, lower levels, high school, junior high, all the way up? What does change? Kind of, unless nothing does. I mean, talk about. Yeah, you said you're still a coach. You have high demands. What are some of the things that are a little bit different that you might need to tweak as you continue to move forward?
Well, there's always a certain saying that I always use to this day: is too many things. Our kids, when we get them back in the fall, Division I players, we will treat them like our 10-year-old camp kids that we have in the summertime. Like, we go through the basics, fundamentals up. That's just how my philosophy is. So I think what changes is just you can expect more, you can demand more. Obviously, when you're coaching middle school kids, you have to be a little more patient. That's going to be key. You have to tell them more than one time how to do certain drill or certain activity. I remember many times out of a timeout when I was coaching middle school basketball, I told them to go left, and so you have to kind of really be detailed in that regard to make sure that they clearly understand so they can't mess up. So, but even still, I think just that flexibility, that understanding that people are going to make mistakes. We're all human, but our ability to adapt to our environment, I think that's really important. If you have a veteran team, like I have a veteran team this year, we do a lot less teaching and just more competing in certain situations to really isolate those moments. If you have a younger team, you have to adapt. So I think you're always adapting as a coach. You have to really understand your team, get to know them. But at the same time, you're going to have to explain everything all the time so they can get it. They don't get it wrong. That's a goal, right? So long as they're set up in the right spots, be where they need to be, those things are most important to me as they kind of go through the journey. So you just adapt to your team year to year. It's always going to be a new team, new players.
No, that's really good. You did a great job of explaining that, because you can still be the same person at each level. It's just adapting to the players that you have. I think I mentioned that early on, kind of the development side of the D3s, D2s, JUCOs up to the D1 is less development, more competing. I think that's what you were referring to, really adapting to the players that you have. Good transition over to kind of the players, right? You said it's a veteran team. That means that you've got some really probably your expectation from a recruiting process. You got to make sure you're taking a look at what you're going to have in the few years. Especially, I see a lot of coaches. You got a veteran team, you got a lot of good things going for you, but really people don't understand what's going on in the background of you're thinking 2, 3, 4 years out. Talk about kind of that next class. You've got this class, you're competing. What are some of the things that you're looking for? What are the type of kids that Georgetown University is looking for as you go out there and make your recruiting rounds?
Yeah, I think just generally speaking, general recruiting is kind of, every coach is going to want really competitive people. I think that starts with in the classroom. I think that starts off the field. I think how they treat their families, those that have good values. I mean, that starts there. The baseball is the easiest part of any college coach's job, any coach's job. You can see if they have talent. That's just one aspect of it. I think then it comes down to, do they fit into our system, our culture, our environment? Our ability to understand, for us, we're in a city. Do you like that? Do you not like that? So like all those factors, you have to kind of really assess when you go and you're talking to kids and making sure they really understand and explain everything. I think the truth is always the best way to go about it and not sugarcoat anything. Like, hey, we're in a city. There's going to be traffic, or hey, we're in a small town and there's not as many things to do. So you have to, so all those things. I think I've been at every different place, from the smallest town to one of the biggest cities in the world, right? So always been honest. And I think once you go through that, you identify those type of kids that want that type of style, then that makes it a lot easier in the process. And I think then you kind of filter out everything else from there.
I think that's really good, Coach. I mean, baseball is the easy part to identify, right? You got a lot of good kids, and it's finding the fit. I think we talk about that a lot on this program is finding the fit, and I think the good coaches understand what that means, and we still have challenges. There's times that you don't find the right kids. What specifically? So we talked about that. I mean, Georgetown is obviously a premier school from an academics perspective. Talk about just in general. I mean, obviously they're great kids. The baseball acumen is up there. What is some of the culture components with Georgetown specifically, and who you're looking for that would fit? And generically, obviously, you can't be specific, but what are you really looking for?
Yeah, well, one thing in the process, I don't have to sell anything. I'm not recruiting a lot of times to families and the players. I'm just presenting who we are and what we are, right? I think that kind of gets into the culture component. We allow ourselves to be open. We're an open book, but we mean that like we want our players that are in the process involved in the process. So like there's some certain non-negotiables that like if you're not really competitive, this won't work. Like again, my middle school basketball coach and my high school football coach mentality is we're going to compete. We're going to compete. That's what I was raised growing up in a small mill town in Maine. Like you play 3 sports, you compete in everything you do. It doesn't matter what it is. So that's how I'm wired. Willing to take constructive criticism. Are you able to take that information that we provide as coaches and be that in a positive? A lot of kids can take that now as a negative and say, oh, he's on me or whatever. It's like, no, we just want things in life. You can either define you or develop you. You understand? And I think that's kind of our strength has been taking players that want to be then actually be coached. That part is sometimes can get lost, where everyone's telling them how good they are. Everyone's saying how great they are. They have different coaches, swing coach, pitching coach, fielding coach. Well, at the end of the day, we try to tell them the truth. And so we identify those traits of kids that want that are hardworking and that are willing to learn. And I think when you get that component combined, then we can kind of talk at the baseball, right? But if they're not those type of people, it won't work for me because I just don't have time to take care of those things. The other part, the growth that they want to have, the development they want to have, that part is where we kind of get excited. The baseball, again, is easiest. Like we can help you with your slider, we can help you hit a breaking ball. Like that part's easy. But if you're not willing to understand that failure is going to happen, and then how do you deal with that failure? And if you trust our plan to help you out, then that's when kind of players won't work for us. And if they're not competitive people.
Coach, what I'm envisioning right now is old school coaches that bring some players in, have always been told that they're the best, and you kind of right off the bat kind of put them where, kind of let them know kind of the reality, the honest truth. Is that, do you see it in their eyes? Can you tell kind of how they respond? Because that is certainly, I'm telling you, with travel ball and elite, you go on to any social platform and you can see these kids pushing all this stuff out on how good they are, the championships, all these things. Do you see it kind of just by challenging them a bit?
Yeah, I mean, we post a depth chart. In football, you have a depth chart. A lot of times when I used to coach college football, you post a depth chart. Baseball, you kind of don't. It's kind of like, oh, we want our kids to know where they're at. If you're the third string shortstop, we want them to know that. And here's what you need to do to get better. And so we identified those traits of players that want that, understand that, and how do you move forward? And I think if we, and it is a shock, right? I mean, when you're the first time not having the starting role, or we had some freshmen this year, and the first time they're sitting the bench for the first, like, it's just, that's normal. And just explaining that. And if our environment allows our kids, our older kids, to explain that, hey, this is part of the process, part of your journey. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay to have those emotions. But at the end of the day, what are you going to do now? Right? Either you going to define you, or to let it develop you, motivate you. And so that's kind of the trait, we try to instill to our kids, that we really want to make sure that they're competitive in that nature. And then know and understand, just because you work hard, just because you're a good kid, does not guarantee anything. This is a results-oriented business. And so that's our job, is to pick the best players for that day. And it can change, but at the end of the day, are you prepared if you're not in the game? I use kind of the Jalen Hurts example. A couple years back, as a football Alabama quarterback, Eagles quarterback, he was a starting quarterback, and at halftime he got benched because he wasn't performing. We use it all the time in our program. That's real. That's a real life thing. And so if kids in the recruiting process, we talk about that. If they can't, we kind of see some traits that they may not be able to handle that, we just move on. It's simple. And it's not a hard task. We only have to 8 to 10 kids a year we have to recruit. So once they get here, we want to make sure our environment allows them to have those moments, and at the same time be a support staff, help them get where they want to be.
That's good. No, that's really good. And it is unique. I mean, you've obviously come from Eastern Kentucky, the D1, but probably not as at the level of Georgetown. And then the other programs that you've been with, D3 in Georgia. But one of the things you hear a lot, and I haven't asked this before, so I don't know how it's going to go. But I think that you're going to provide a little bit, actually a good perspective on it. You hear a lot with people saying, hey, do you want to ride the bench for a couple of years, or do you want to play right away? That is certainly, at the higher levels, you have different challenges, because you have these really good kids that may just want to play right away versus riding the bench for a couple of years, doing what they're doing. How do you determine that type of player, and what are you telling them specifically that makes them go, you know what, I'm willing to sit a couple of years to be on this level of team?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just, again, back to honesty. We tell kids all the time, we're not going to tell you, we're not going to guarantee you're going to be a player. I don't care if you're on scholarship, you're not on scholarship. I don't care if you're from a big program, small program. We don't care. Like, it's a clean slate. So we tell them, you will earn everything in our program. Everything. You earn your grades, you earn your opportunity, you earn everything. So we say, earn your shirt. It's kind of one of our things, our creeds, if you will. And we just talk about that. And so the reality is, that's hard to process if you're a young kid that always had success. And I think we don't recruit kids to sit the bench, right? We know that if we have, like, our team's really veteran, this team, we return 9 out of our top 10 hitters. We had 98 home runs last year. Yeah, we know on paper, right, that team, if nothing else changed, we have a team that could go out and compete. Well, that doesn't stop our young guys from coming in and trying to compete and earn their time. So I think it's a balance. And I think kids that we identify, we try to go through the process, understand and tell them, this is what it looks like. Are you willing to work to beat this person out? And if you get the right people, there's one of the great kids I've had, competitive kids, Marcus Strom. He plays for the Cubs, and I heard this story, talk about he never worried about who he was going against. He's like, you may have one pitcher better than me, maybe even 2. You're not going to have 3 on a weekend rotation, right? It's like, you talk to those kids and you find out those traits. Like, they don't care how many kids you have coming back. They want to know, we'll have a chance to compete. And that's really you want to do. If you want to go XYZ school because that's where you've always been dreaming to go for it. But understand that there's going to be really good competitive people. And our assistant coach makes it a great point for Coach Julius McDougall, been with me for 6 years. Every pitcher that has ever gotten you out is on our staff. And you really think about that, and same thing from a hitting standpoint, they're on our staff. And so it's going to be competitive. And if you explain that in the process, 3 other players just like you at shortstop, like a answer for you, but we just try to instill that to our kids. We recruit, and then once they get here, we kind of value those type of
That's
moments.
good. That's good. As players, you said you probably recruit 6 to 9 players every year. So it's probably certainly different than the way you've done in the past with other programs. What are things, a lot of things have changed and a lot of things have stayed the same. What are some of the advice, best advice that you could provide kids at any level that want to play collegiate ball? And then more specifically, Georgetown, if they've got Georgetown Hoyas up on their wall, it's one of their dreams that they really want to play. Yeah. So talk specific, more generally from a collegiate perspective, kind of the advice you'd give, but then also more specifically to Georgetown, if it's really one of the programs that they are really interested in playing at.
I think no matter what school you're looking at, your grades got to be the first priority. I mean, if you want to major in engineering and the school doesn't have engineering, well, that doesn't make any sense. There's that has to be a priority. Don't want to go, geographically, and the only school in big schools. Well, you need to reevaluate your list, identify what you want. Yeah. I think that's what I tell kids all the time. What do you want out of their experience? It's your career. It's your journey. And so if you're good enough, they'll find, there'll be schools out there for you. You got to kind of help that streamline that process. So I think that's always going to be important. Your grades, the location, the area, I think what I always say, there's programs that have a lot of stuff. What I mean, like nice facilities and things, you can get caught up in stuff. We try to provide substance for our kids, substance for our program. And we don't focus on stuff as much as substance. That's really important to us. So I think identifying a coaching staff that you can relate to, that has your style. I'm honest and direct. Do you want that? Some kids don't like that. They want just a different situation. We really focus on school life and then baseball. Some want just baseball. Like there's just so many schools and there's so many ways to do it successfully. I only know what the way that works for me and how we want to function. And so I think for our situation, obviously we're a top 25 academic school in the world. You have to have academics to be able to maintain success once you get here. Once you get that stuff, but just the hard the certain classes that whatever school needs to get in, like that's got to be important. If it's not, then we're not a good fit for you. Yeah. And that's just most schools will say the same thing. Every school is different. From there, for us, we're in the city, so there's no getting around. You're going to have helicopters flying over your head. That's Pentagon related or state security every day. So understand that there's 3 airports within a 20-mile radius. Like it's a big major metropolitan area. Do you like that? And so those are type of things that you have to kind of identify. Do you want to go further south? Do you want to stay close to home? All those things factor in. And I think for us, we just want guys that want to be in our environment. I think that's any coach. We want to be in the environment that you have at that school. And that allows guys to make the best decision for themselves. And so we never beg guys to come play for me. It's like, I want to come play for you because I want to be a part of what you're doing. And then that allows that mutual excitement when they make that decision. Great points. I
appreciate that. What are some things that kids in general, they want to work on they want to get exposed. They want to get noticed. They want to work on their on kind of the baseball side. What do you recommend the best thing that kids can do from that perspective?
Truth. I think that see in the game that youth, not in a negative way. I mean, I don't want, I don't think that's not my style. I just tell the truth. Like, hey, right now, here's where you're at. It's okay to be here where you're at. And then it's your job, again, go back to that player to say, I want that information. That wants that information. That's number one. Find them that tell you the truth. Number two, get in love with the craft, get in love with the process, get in love with getting better, get in love with, like, I grew up in Maine. So like I played 3 sports, and like after basketball games in the wintertime, there's snow outside. There's no indoor cages where I'm from. So I had a little tennis net and a little tee, and I get my certain swings in. I heard Tony Gwynn did it one time. So like, I'm going to do that. Right. And so like, I just find people that work at the level you want to be at. And I always tell kids, if your goals and your habits, right, if your goals are up here and your habits are down here, but you want to be a big leaguer, but you have rookie ball habits, well, you better make sure those things are aligned. And so like, those are 3 things that are internal. You can take control, getting feedback, working really hard at your limitations, and then just in love in the process of what you want to become. And then at the end of the day, you got to perform. That's it. People like performers. It's results oriented. So if you want to play at an SEC school and you're not on a team as a junior or a sophomore, like that, and have your level, and that's okay. So be realistic with your level. But the last thing I would tell is be realistic of where you're at. And I think honesty, like, hey, if you're not a fast be a sprinter, you better be a distance runner, right? I mean, that's kind of just, you have to take a appreciation and understanding. So for me, those three things are the most important. Get the truth told to you, find out what you need to work on, love what you're working on that process, and then just ultimately perform, and then be realistic with your expectations. Don't change your goals, but make sure they align with what you want to do.
That was good. My favorite is the goals and the work ethic. You've got to have that in line, and that to me is really, really key. That's awesome. So Coach, a little bit more about you. You're at Georgetown University. Talk about Georgetown, being the head coach at Georgetown, and then we'll go back to some of the other locations, kind of the difference between the two. But talk about, everybody knows Georgetown, right? But they don't know what it's like being there, right? I've visited Georgetown. I've always loved Georgetown, but I've never been a student. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think growing up, I'm a 1980s kid, 90s, and so like Georgetown was everything. Basketball, Coach John Thompson, who's not related to me, by the way. That's why everyone calls me Coach T. So I say when I first got hired, there's only one Coach Thompson in this program. I'm just Coach T, but out of respect to him and what he built. And so I think the perception is that it's just in the city. We have you can see the monuments, you can see all the different stuff, but we're kind of in our own little area called Georgetown of DC. It's really nice. It's a great location, not too big of a campus. So you feel like that campus vibe. You have a very good flow of students, obviously very high academics, but just the environment, the people on our campus and in our community, the alumni network. There's so many great things that the school has. It just really is true. And once you kind of visit, you kind of feel that. And I think that part of it, our program baseball wise, last year we set a school record in wins, which was great for our kids. And it was the first winning season since 1986. And I tell people that and they're like, wow, really? But it's hard. It's hard here academically. Our field's not on campus. There's a lot of challenge that we have to deal with. But I've always been a big believer. You can make excuses and make things happen. And that's really the truth. And I just think that we try to take what we have and make the most of it. And I think that's where we look for in identifying who we want to bring in here, who we how we develop our kids. But the school itself is just, I think there's like 30 or 40 people in Congress and Senate. There's former presidents. It's really special to kind of be every day, and our kids get that opportunity to be there around some of the best and the brightest day. So that part of it makes it unique in the Big East.
That's awesome.
Too. So it's a great blend.
Make excuses or make it happen. I like that.
Yeah.
I was just sitting here thinking, the challenges at your level are different. And so, with the top 25 academic program in the world, you're not limited on the quality of baseball players that you have. You're limited on the quality of the education and the academics, because you could be the best baseball player in America right now. And if you can't cut the academic side of Georgetown, it's not a fit, right? I mean, that is certainly a challenge that you guys have to talk about. Back to a couple of other stops that you've had and some of the things that you picked up there, and then now at Georgetown, and just contrast. And I'm asking this, Coach, because you do bring a different perspective, and there's very few people that may Georgetown may appeal to, but your philosophy and kind of what experience and what you bring to the table is significant. So add maybe a couple other stops, and we're getting to the end of this, so it didn't have to be a lot of information, just the difference between the different levels, because academics is important, but it's different from those different levels.
Yeah, I think that I did Division III for 6 years, and I think the kids at Division III are just like the kids at Division I. They're competitive. They love baseball. The difference is they may have more opportunities to do other things with their time, study abroad, or which some of our kids can do. It's just harder, right? There's just a natural thing of time, less games, there's less practice times. So those things are a little bit different. But I think the kids are the same. The kids have been the same since I coached middle school basketball, middle school track, to the kids I have now. They love to win. They love to compete. And so part of the stops, I've been at Duke, very similar to Georgetown. So I was able to have that early in my career to understand kind of how to balance. Kids have midterms. It's a little bit different than being other places I've been at. So like just from a time standpoint. So just managing each place, like I said earlier, it's just each school is different. So the expectations, the academic, how much school classes are missed, all those things are kind of factored in. I've been at Georgia State was great because that prepared me to be in a city. Georgia State's in downtown Atlanta, so I prepare for that. So every step, Eastern Kentucky, I was a head coach, and we helped kind of build the program, kind of back up in a manner and do some really positive things. It's allowed me each stop to have success, have great kids, support, administration, like all those things. Young coaches today, they sometimes want to go to the team to make sure you understand what it looks like to run your own program. And I say, get a high school job. That's great. I was a high school varsity assistant coach. I was a high school basketball coach. Like, that's great. It prepared me for my first head coaching job in college at Bates. So all those things are really important. I think I never look back and say, oh, I wish I'd done that. My journey is my journey, and everyone has that opportunity in their own journey. So I think that's something that I think I tell anybody out there is like, if you want to be a Division I coach or college coach, I did it from middle school basketball. Like, I was middle school track coach, special education teacher, and then 2 years later I was at Duke University. Like, it's just when you put that in perspective, but my values haven't changed. My work ethic hasn't changed. My ability to connect with people, and that's always been kind of consistent. That's just understanding and be prepared. Now, that's one thing. Have the dreams. Again, go back from a coaching standpoint. If you're not prepared for those opportunities, what are you going to do when they get there? Yeah. So you have to approach every job like that dream job.
I love it. That was a great place to kind of wrap up. Your journey is your journey. I mean, that's why I do these episodes is learning about the coaches' journeys. Coach, it's been a real privilege to have you on today. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to watching a veteran team. We're going to be competing for the Big East Championship again. Get you over to Omaha, and certainly I'll be able to be down there and possibly hook up again and do another live stream podcast when we're in Omaha. How about that?
That sounds like a plan. We'll book that in right now. It's going to focus on Presbyterian College, February 17th, but we'll every step of the way, you got all you do and all that your family's done for the blue. Those that are not there, just get the app. I'd encourage you to get mine today. And looking forward to watching and more. I love these podcasts. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Have a great day.